Okay. Afternoon, everyone. I'm Mike. I'm head of partnerships with Horsefly Talent Market Analytics. We've got Rich Hutchinson from Capital with us today. And I'm going to talk through a little bit about what we do, but we're external talent market analytics. And before I jump into what we do, you're probably wondering why I've got Lego on the screen. And to add some context, if you imagine a big box of Lego and you see red bricks, yellow bricks, blue bricks, green bricks, different size bricks, and actually we try and relate that to the talent market and what is out there. How do we know which bricks fit together? How do we know what goes next to each other and we don't? And how do we go from unorganized to a very cool Lego building of the Millennium Falcon? And essentially what you're looking at is, with these Lego bricks, they are the pieces of that talent market, whether it's salary benchmarking, gender split, supply and demand, candidate location. How can you use analytics to make some sense from the talent market landscape? And these are some of the things that we can actually cover within Horsefly as a platform. So what do? We gather data on the talent pool from over hundreds of thousands of different sources. So that could be social media, it could be government sources, it could be private sources. And this data is constantly updated. So we're refreshing on a 14-day cycle. So everything that you were looking at from a talent market landscape is constantly updated. We've got huge regional growth. So we started in the UK, and we're now, as you can see, all of the countries here with further growth expanding out to the likes of China, Singapore, and further afield over the rest of this year and into 2019. I've got 10 minutes, so I need to be fairly succinct with what I talk about, but what can you get from within Horsefly? And what you're looking at is a macro and a micro level, really, of the demand for particular skills. So on the UK map, so where is my talent? If I'm looking for certain skills, I'm recruiting for certain skills, I'm looking at opening a new office, where do I put that? And I know there's some of our clients which are here today that are going through this exact process. So if I look from a sort of a more micro level across the southeast of England, where is that talent? And how can I use this data to influence what we're doing as an organization? So it's not about just having the data, it's how you use that to then make an impact in your business to make sure that you're targeting what you're doing. So what else can I do from within Horsefly? There's a range of different things. So you've got supply and demand. So it's not just about the density. How difficult is it going to be to recruit certain skill sets, certain regions? And that's not just down to what you're offering as a business, but what does the competitor landscape look like? How many other people are recruiting? What do the salaries look like in all of these different regions? And again, how do you actually, before you go and even advertise for roles, just as an example, how do you make a decision that you've got the right salaries, the right location, and you're actually going to beat your competitors that you're trying to recruit these people from? I can look at the salary benchmark. What's the range? So there's a range of different things that you can look at, and you'll see across the top tabs on that sort of right-hand side screen grab there is a good number of different things you can look at. And just sort of pulling on a couple of other things, the competitor employee landscape. So I've talked about this. So do you know where the people you're trying to recruit are currently working? You may not need to. You may have a gut feel, but how do you know that you can take some analytics to a hiring manager, to business leaders, to HR business planning, and say, look, if we're trying to recruit certain people in a certain region, this is where they work. You're then going to take your research further than that to look at actually what that business is talking about. So can you compete with them? How many people in the audience here today have got any kind of challenge or a discussion going around gender and diversity within the organization? So I think most people will. And we've worked with a number of businesses that they've said we want a 40% representation of women in STEM. So how are you going to do that? Do you buy it or do you build it? And actually, this kind of analytics will give you the initial insights to say, okay, what are we going to do if we need that balance? The experience breakdown, salaries range from whether it's skilled people or, entry-level people into the marketplace. So can you understand what the percentage of the market is that is entry-level and what's higher level? It's going to really dictate what salaries are being offered in that particular area. So it's about thinking about all of these different things and how they can impact what you're doing as a business. And I've got Capita with me today to talk about exactly what they've been doing. So I'm going to shut up now and pass you over to Mr. Hutchinson.
Hi everyone, thank you. So we've been using Horsefly for just over a year, and we use it in a number of different ways. But I guess the first thing for us is really about helping us to build an understanding of the labour market. And as Mike's referenced, we can look at the supply versus demand, we can understand the salary benchmarking, and we can start to assess whether we actually need to start thinking about engaging third-party agencies. How difficult will this role be to fill? I have a function that's a central sourcing function, and we use this to guide our recruiters in terms of the complexity of the vacancy and whether it's something that we're willing to pick up from a sourcing perspective. And assigned to that is using that insight, understanding the organisations that have the skill sets that we're looking for, understanding the universities that potentially candidates have come from, etc. Really helps us to define our headhunting strategy, helps us to focus on some of the key words that potentially are highlighted as associated keywords to the search that we've built. So from a sourcing perspective, it really helps us to narrow down really quickly a targeted search to find the right candidates as quickly as possible. With Capita being the organisation that it is, it's going into new markets on a fairly regular basis. And what this enables us to do very quickly is understand those new markets and sectors and give guidance and advice to our hiring manager community as to the complexities and the difficulties that we may find, or actually reverse of that, how easy it may be for us to recruit against a requirement and therefore avoid the need to engage third-party supply. You often get that hiring manager pushing to engage agency, and actually sometimes you can demonstrate through the data there isn't a need, the labour market's there, it should be fairly accessible. And what that really means is that our recruiters become strategic advisors. So we're not just order takers anymore, we're actually having a strategic conversation with our hiring manager community. We're actually being able to give advice and guidance on what we will do to fulfil their requirement and whether we need to think differently outside of the box from our core strategy. If I just take a particular case study, we were working with a hiring manager, or our sourcing function was working with a hiring manager to recruit a Cisco PM, specifically in Chelmsford, and the salary was about 40k. So we used Horsefly to identify the kind of information that was helping us to plot the exact skills that we needed. And once we've done that, actually the hiring manager then asked us to look at Reigate as a particular location. So again, we went back into Horsefly, we built a search, we targeted our audience, we used Horsefly to enable us to zone in on that audience appropriately. And what we then found with Reigate specifically was that the average salary range within that particular region was 55k. And that actually gave us a real conversation with that hiring manager about the fact that we can move to recruit in Reigate, but actually we're going to need to think differently about the salary that we're going to be recruiting for or advertising against. And what that actually led to was a shift in the salary expectation for that hiring manager and a shift in what we could go out to the market with. So for me, that's a really great example of using the data to have a strategic conversation with the hiring manager and change our approach based on the insight that we're able to give them. And then I guess high level in terms of the results that we've seen over the last year, it's massively reduced the time that we've taken to produce insight. We can build a search really quickly and pull a report off and provide it fairly instantaneously. Previously, we'd be going on lots of different data sources to get lots of different bits of information and try and plug it all together. Our credibility with hiring managers has increased significantly because, as I said, we're now having strategic conversation rather than just taking orders and trying to fulfill a requirement. Our sourcing team has been able to target much harder to fill vacancies because they've got a tool that enables them to think differently and to focus their effort in the right way. And it also means that because we're understanding the market, we're understanding where the skill shortages might be and therefore how complex the role might be to fulfill through our sourcing team or through advertising, we engage agencies at the right time. So we're not pushing back on an agency, we're engaging an agency because it's appropriate to at that moment. And then I guess finally, the other piece is, and this is what it's all about, is saving money, right? So we're not advertising when we don't need to, but we are advertising when we do. So we're actually focusing our spend in the right way, which means ultimately we're saving money and time.
No, thanks, Rich. Again, that's kind of it from us.